Welcome to Sew with Monty. Today we have a really fun project. We're going to learn how to make a beanie. Very simple, with darts in the top and two seams. So I've got two here, one almost made and one that has been made. What I'm using is polar fleece. This is the fabric I've chosen. Now you can use any kind of knit. Basically you can even make a lightweight one out of an old t-shirt or jersey or just about anything, but I'm going to use the polar fleece. And here's my pattern. My pattern consists of this one little arch placed on the fold. Now I could cut 6 of these and sew them all up and have seams all around my beanie like this. Each one would be a seam. Or I take 3 copies of this and I tape them together on these lines right here, so that I have 1, 2, 3. Now I cut 2 of these on the fold and I'm ready to make my beanie. So either way is fine. Let's say I wanted to do something that had a contrast, like a black and white, and I wanted each piece to be different. So then I may use this single pattern piece. But if I wanted all one color and I want to save myself some seams, I do the tape together and just cut 2 of these and make darts. So here's the pieces I've cut. So as you can see on the fold, they're long and peaked, 3 peaks on each side. So I have 2 of these to make the beanie. Now let's talk about the pom-pom on top. So to cut the pom-pom, these are the pieces you're going to end up with. To do this, you want to double layer your fabric and cut a 5 by 5 inch square. And then once you get your square, you cut them in strips of 1/2 inch. So it would be just like this, 5 inch by 5 inch, and you cut 1/2 inch. Now you want to choose the method or the direction that doesn't stretch as much. So if this is the side that doesn't stretch as much, this is the way I want to cut my lengths, the non-stretchy length, like this. After you're all done with that, you cut a piece, and I've already stretched this, but you cut a piece 1/2 inch by 7 inch in the stretch direction. So you'll have all of these 5 by 5 and then one 5 by 7 in the direction of the stretch. So let's go ahead and make the pom-pom and then we'll sew up the actual beanie. So you want to stack all your little pieces together like this, so they're roughly the same height. And then you take the stretchy side, the stretchy 5 by 7, and you center it right in the middle and tie a little knot and cinch it very tight like that. And then finish your knot off like this. And I just leave mine for now because they may come in handy when I attach it to my beanie. And then you shake it, and when it lays flat on the top of your beanie, you have a pom-pom. And you can go back and trim them to any size you want and any way you want. But that'll be the top of our beanie when we're done. So that's the pom-pom. So let's go ahead and take our pieces over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how to sew this up. It's a real quick, fun, easy little project. Each one of these little darts, I'm going to put them together, and I'm using a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to go down through here 3/8 of an inch and come off just like a dart. I'm using my single or straight stitch stretch so that it has a little bit of flex. This really doesn't have a lot of tension on it, but I don't want my seams popping in my hat when I'm wearing it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of stretch on it, and I'm going to do each one of these darts this way. And there will be, I think, 6 of them. No, 12 of them. It's a lot of darts. So you'll be doing a lot of darts. Just come off at an angle, and when you get to the end, now because I'm using a stretch stitch, I don't have to back up, and you just trim your threads, and you're going to do this on every one of your darts. And when you open it up, see, you've got the beginning of your beanie. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the rest of my darts in, and then I'll take you to the next step. I've sewn all my darts but one in, but I want to show you something, 2 little things. When you sew your dart in, you want to pin or mark how far down you want to go so all your darts are even. So I've measured mine about 1 1/8 from the opening and make sure all my darts are the same length. So on my hat, it's symmetrical. The second part of this is, after you've got this dart put in and you're ready to do the second dart on your quarter panel, is you want to make sure that you line this top edge up with this top edge. See, like that, so they're all even. And then when you sew it, take this one out of the way, but you want to sew from right here. Don't go all the way to the end. Sew from right here down to your 1.1/8 or inch, wherever you're going to end your dart. So I'm just going to compare that. And that needs to be just a tiny bit lower. So I'm going to sew from here to here and not all the way through. So that will be my last seam for all my darts. And then I'll show you the next step. So just let me sew this and we'll go to the next step. Again, I'm using my stretch stitch. It's optional. I mean, you could sew this with a regular stitch. It's not like it's going to have a lot of stress on it. I just want mine to last a while, and I don't want it to accidentally pop a hole in there, because trying to fix it, it means I'm going to have to do some hand stitching on it, and it may not come out as nice as I think. So this will prevent that from happening. So now I have all my darts sewn. So I have these half eggs, so to speak, see? Like this. The next step is we're going to take all of these little edges and we're going to put them together and try to flatten your seams out so that you don't have a big knot here. And I'm going to pin it together just like this, and I'm going to sew all the way around my egg, and I'm going to leave a little hole right here in the top of this crown, about 3 inches wide. I'm going to go up a little taller here, about 3 inches, and I'm going to sew from here all the way around and stop. And then once I do that, we're going to turn it inside out, and I'll show you the next step. So let me get the rest of the pins in here, and I'll go ahead and start sewing. Okay, so we're going to start here and go all the way around. 3/8 inch seam allowance, remember your seam allowance, and still using my stretch stitch. And I'm going to come right through here. And when I get to the top, I want to flatten out these little seam allowances, making sure I've caught everything so that I don't have a big lump in here. So I'm flattening them out as I come around through here. Let me pull my pins out before I get there, making sure I've got all my edges lined up. And I'm going to come right through here nice and slow, nice and easy. I don't want to break the needle, so just slow it down when you get in this area. And you may have to lift your foot and adjust it a little bit. That sometimes happens. And just come on through. Come on through there. There we go. And I'm going to go all the way around and back up to the other pin. So let me do that, and then I'll turn it and I'll show you the next step. I've sewn all the way around the oval edge of my beanie, leaving a hole to turn it at. So all my darts are put in, and there actually is 8. There's 4 on each end. And now it's time to turn it. So we're going to turn it inside out through this little hole. And try not to pop your seams. That's the purpose of using the stretch stitch, so your seams do not pop. And once you have it over here, you want to straighten it out and align the crowns. So I'm going to push this one out. See, and there's the crown for one side. See how nice that looks? Very cute. Now I'm going to take this other side and I'm going to fix it the same way. See, very nice. Now I like this side better, so I'm going to make that my outside. And I'm going to try to get this little point lined up with the other point. And once I have those points together, like that, I'm going to pin them together. It's a little thick, so you probably need to use a larger pin. And once you have those crowns pinned, then you can straighten out the rest of your hat. You want to make sure that all the edges are folded properly, like this, see? And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hand stitch this hole up. Now if you don't want to hand stitch it up, you could take it to your machine and edge stitch it shut right there. But I like the finish of the hand stitch, so I'm just going to hand stitch this closed. And then the last thing I'm going to do is turn it over, check, make sure everything's laying flat. And if you need to press it, you can put a press ham in here and press it nice and flat. And then we'll put a decorative stitch right around this outside edge. So let me go ahead and press and sew up the hole by hand here, and then I'll show you the decorative stitch. I've stitched my hole up here. I've turned it inside out and pinned it at the top as we saw in the last episode. And then I pig stitched right here by hand with a hand needle. So you can barely see that that's even been stitched. And then I went ahead and secured the two crowns together by taking my hand needle and double thread and just sewed them together so they were tacked. After that, I went and got my cute little pom-pom, and I took the knot underneath here and I continued to sew the knot to the place where I'd stitch it together on the hat. I suggest you do these two in separate stages because it's very thick if you try to stitch this together at the same time you're hooking your pom-pom. Now these long stretched out pieces that I use to tie it with, I'm just going to shorten them so they're not longer than the fringe on my pom-pom. The last thing I've done is I went over to my sewing machine and I picked a decorative stitch and I put a pin row in here and did a decorative stitch around this bottom edge so that it wouldn't twist and get all out of shape. So I've done that all the way around my hemline. Now I want to talk to you about something because this is something I discovered. When you do this decorative stitch, not only do you not want to pull on the fabric, but you don't want to change your speed. See what happened when I started going fast? So you pick a speed and you stay with it. It's like a dance. Don't get out of step. Because I have this little section here that the stitches are all close together because I started to speed up. So get the speed the way you want it and keep it at that pace so that you make your stitches nice and even. And when you're done, you have an adorable little beanie. Great gifts for everybody for the holidays. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. This is a little bonus. I had scraps left over from my beanie, so I'm going to make a neck warmer out of it to match. So I've cut a rectangle 15 inches by 24 inches. This is so simple. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to sew this seam together, and then I'm going to finish off the edges, either open like this or flatten down together. Then I'm going to turn each one of these edges up 1.25 inches and put the same decorative stitch on that I did on my cap so that I can make a neck warmer. So let me go ahead and sew this up and then I'll bring it back and show you what it looks like. The measurement again, 24 inches by 15 to make a neck warmer. So let's go sew. I'm in the process of sewing the neck warmer that goes with the beanie. And we started off with 24 inches horizontally and 15 inches vertically here. You want to make sure that your 24 inches runs with the stretch of the fabric. That makes it easy to get over your head, otherwise it's going to be difficult. So always the 24 inch needs to run with the stretch on the fabric. Now I've already finished this top edge, and what I did was turn under 1.5 inches and then sewed my decorative stitch that matches the one on the beanie. But I wanted to show you a couple of things. I sewed my seam together with the blanket stitch, and I just wanted to show you how just enchanting it looks. It would make a great finish on the edge of a seam, or anywhere actually, on this polar fleece. So I wanted to show you what it looks like and that I used this to do my seam. Now the other thing I did when I folded my seam, I folded my 1.5 inches up, I made sure that my seam allowance, the blanket stitch, went in opposite directions. So there's not a big lump here. So part of it folds this way and part of it folds that way, so that I don't have a lump to sew over when I'm sewing on my machine. So now we're ready to put the second hem in, and I'm just slipping it up over my foot. I took the front of the machine plate off, and I'm lining it up so that I'm right here. So I'm just inside 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches so that my seam doesn't come off the edge of my fabric. And I'm just going to go the same speed. Now, before when I did it, I sped up in a place and it distorted the stitch. So now I've got my speed governor on so that I can't do that again. So if I get heavy-footed, it won't go too fast. So we're just going to start off nice and easy, and we're just going to put the decorative stitch on here. Now it backs up, which means it'll give and stretch with the stretch of my fabric. And I just go along through here, making sure that I'm catching the edge of my fabric and keeping my fold right on the gauge that I calculated it should be at. That way I know it's even and it's also catching the seam. So we're going to go all the way around through here. So this lovely little project is basically 3 seams. You sew it into a loop, you hem both edges, and you've got the most adorable neck warmer. So let me go just a little bit farther and I will show you the finished product. So this is the most adorable little set, and so easy to make, so quick to make. It would make a wonderful gift for someone. The possibilities are limitless, truly. This is the neck warmer, and notice that I've got the stretch going horizontally. So that 24-inch measurement, you want to make sure that it's running this way. Also, I've used a decorative stitch, but it's also a stretch stitch. So when I pull on it, it's not going to pop either and break the threads. And I've used this adorable blanket stitch on the inside, so even inside it still looks pretty. It's cute. So anyway, that's a very easy little project, makes a great gift. A little beanie and a neck warmer, and there you have it.